Hello and welcome everyone, I'm Benjamin Carano. Today's video is going to be pretty short and straightforward. For those of you who saw my video on installing the Honda GX 120cc engine on a bicycle, you may have remembered that toward the end of the video I decided to switch from a centrifugal clutch to a torque converter, and I will still be doing a video on the differences between a centrifugal clutch and a torque converter, but in today's video I'm just going to be showing you how I installed the torque converter for the 212 Predator engine. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so your 212cc Predator engine torque converter is going to look something like this. It has the extra sprocket right over here for 415 chain or 41 chain. Either one of those should fit on there. It also has another small sprocket in there in case you want to put this thing on a go-kart or whatever. And then it's just the big aluminum hunk right there. The other pulley comes in a little pack with some zip ties on it. You've got the belt, and the hardware is basically 4 bolts, which are going to go through a pattern of 4 of these holes. I'm probably going to use the middle one of each of the inside rows of 3, and those will bolt it to the engine. So I line those up. They each have a lock washer and a regular washer on them. You'll have a longer bolt here with a lock washer, a regular washer, which will basically screw this pulley onto your motor shaft. I'll have an extra sprocket. I think this one's for number 35 chain if you wanted to go with that. It's not a motorized bicycle. Just got your 4 little screws to put the cover over it if you choose to do that, and then a spacer to get the spacing of this pulley to line up with this pulley after you slide this one onto the motor shaft. So with that, let's get installing it. So the only tools you'll need to install this are a socket wrench with a socket that fits over the bolts to fasten the torque converter to the motor, some anti-seize compound, and an adjustable wrench or a wrench that fits the bigger nut to tighten down on the bigger one of the 2 pulleys. So with that, we can get started on mounting the torque converter to the engine. So I'm going to be installing this torque converter on my motorized bike. This is a Honda GX 120cc. This will also work with obviously the Predator 212 and other Honda clone engines. But it won't fit unless we cut an angle on this plastic oil cap here. I never use this one, I always use this one, and you can always buy replacements of these really cheap if you decide that you didn't like to ruin it and you want to use the engine for something else. But I'm just going to go ahead and cut a little angle on that using a Dremel grinder tool. And that's it. Now we can just touch it up with a little bit of sandpaper if we want to, or just leave it like it is, and then go ahead and put the torque converter on. Now I'm going to go ahead and prep all my hardware with some anti-seize just to prevent threads from stripping out and dissimilar reactions between the aluminum and the steel when they are screwed inside the motor. So don't need too much, just a little bit on each one of them, just to make sure that they are a little bit more protected and don't end up rusting inside the motor or stripping out any threads. And I'm also going to do it to the bolt that holds the pulley onto the motor shaft. So now I went ahead and lined this up so that each one of these is in the middle hole here, and I'm just basically getting them hand tight. And then I'll come in with my socket wrench and get them tighter. just going to get them snug for now. Absolutely not super tight until I get the entire thing and the belt all lined up and the spacers on and everything like that. I don't want to go too tight just yet until I know that it's what I want to do. And I'm actually not impressed with the bolts this came with. They're not super long. They're pretty long, but I've had longer ones on the transmission that just go in a little bit farther, so I'm not going to go too tight at all because I really don't want to strip out the aluminum threads of the actual engine. So again, just really making sure they're snug. They do have lock washers, and they'll really be good enough without cranking super tight on them. And if one ever does come loose, then you'll know you'll just have to go a little bit tighter, and you can always take this pulley off and tighten them up again later. So I think that's good for now. And then we can go ahead and basically take this little washer that's usually on the zip ties of this pulley that slides over the axle, and basically this washer is going to go on, and then this black spacer is going to go on over that before we go putting this front pulley on. Alright guys, so I do apologize for it being dark now. It is now nighttime. It's winter out here and the night comes really fast, and I had to take a little break from my work. But anyway, I'm going to slide that smaller washer on, and then this black spacer on, and then after that I'm going to take the flat side of the pulley, and there's a little key slot on the inside of it there that I'm going to line up with the key slot on the engine and slide that on like so. And then there's a brass bushing here that will just slide over like that. And now it's time to put the belt on. And you'll see with these belts, one side has kind of a taper to it and one side is really flat, and that taper side is going to be facing out to go onto these taper pulleys. So I'll make sure the flat edge is facing the flat pulleys. So first I'm going to put it around the big pulley, and then stretch it a little bit and fit it right around that smaller brass bushing there. Then I'm going to fit this piece on right here, and making sure that these two little parallel line edges are facing out, and again it has a little key slot there that'll line up. And then I'm going to place this pulley on so that the spring plates are facing out. You can see that that tapered pulley there is facing the tapered edge of the belt, and that'll just slide on to this piece when the little slots get lined up like so. Then I'm going to take the cover for it, and that just lines up with those little parallel edges. And then comes this black piece here with a little insert there and a little slot. The slot is lined up with the key slot on the engine, and that just gets inserted right into there. And then we can go ahead and take the end bolt, again with some anti-seize on it, and push it right in there, and go ahead and tighten it down. Now we're just going to take the socket wrench and snug that bolt up while holding this pulley here, and that's all you need to do. Now all that's left is just to install the chain, in my case, to go from my torque converter to my rear wheel. If you're doing this for a mini bike or any other torque converter installation, you'll just have to put the chain on, but that's all you got to know for installing a torque converter. And then the last bit that I did forget to mention, this bolt right here, or this big nut I should say, if it's not already tight, you're going to want to make sure that's good and tight as well, and that's what I'm just using this adjustable wrench for. But with that all good and tight, that's all you need to know for installing a torque converter. Alright, so that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful for you all, and if it was, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, feel free to post questions or recommendations of things you might like to see in future videos. And if you are interested in seeing the differences between a centrifugal clutch and a torque converter, I'll have that video out very soon, and the link will probably be in the description of this video as soon as that video does come out, so be sure to check that out if you're interested. And with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.